All right, we're really excited. So today we're going to be walking through this car. It's a 2019 Mercedes-Benz G550. It comes in the AMG or the base. Every car comes with a 9-speed automatic, and we're going to take you through the exterior styling, the interior fit and finish, and then we'll take it out for a test drive and wrap it up with my thoughts. Before we get started, smash that like button, drop a comment below if there's another car you want to see reviewed, and subscribe if you like the content. This 2019 Mercedes G550 is an excellent example of a luxury SUV that you can pick up on the used market that represents an iconic car that will last the test of time. Now, this particular model has been produced for over 40 years, and while the styling hasn't changed, it retains this boxy body on frame, and the 2019 really updates a few minor pieces but keeps a lot of the traditional elements. This 2019 is an excellent value on the used car market, and this video review is going to walk through a lot of the features if you're unfamiliar with this car and the supreme value that it offers on the used market. So first, let's start with the styling. I mean, this is iconic. This is a boxy car. It was built with practicality and four-wheel drive terrain in mind. Inside this particular car, you get an immediate sense of luxury. I think that they have taken a very rugged car and then swaddled the interior in all depths of luxury. And it's a very interesting concept because they've taken a utilitarian base, you know, four-wheel off-road capacity, and then they've done the opposite for the interior, and they've really tried hard to make it the opposite of what the utilitarian starting point was. And I think the result is something that really speaks to people. It just exudes this masculinity or capability, and it's a really interesting concept that I think a lot of other manufacturers try to do, but they don't have that same luxury attempt. And so, you know, the G-Wagon, as iconic as it is, has really created its own class of luxury vehicle. So when you take a look at everything inside here, it is high touch surfaces, are really nice leather. Everything is luxurious. The buttons, everything here is a solid metallic feel. You don't get rattles, you don't get any loose or cheap plastics. And I really think that of the big three marks, you know, the BMW, Audi, or Mercedes interiors, by far, they are just, you know, the top for luxury. And I think you pay for that too, but this G-Wagon, you know, this G550, it really is the epitome of what people are looking for. And you can take something that's really off-road capable and just looks cool, you know, but then counters that with top-of-the-line luxury, and then you have a G-Wagon which has sold so well for over 40 years. So again, inside, you know, we're greeted with a very large display. I'm going to try this view out. Inside, we're greeted with a very large display. You can see the steering wheel. It's got a little bit of a flat bottom. I do think that actually helps getting into the car because it is so high. You need to step and really put your foot in, so that gives you an extra little bit of leg clearance. You have a little bit of fake perforations. They don't seem very deep to me, but otherwise it's you know, a pretty standard Mercedes wheel. Again, these are the same stocks, they carry over in everything. What's nice, if you can see here, is this full dash, and so it's full digital. It's got a lot of different customization options. We have the command center, which is not as the latest and greatest from Mercedes, but it's still very good, and this system works. So we have the massage seats, we have driver, you know, it's really quite interesting to see the heated massage, to see, you know, activating massage. There's a lot of choices here, that they feel great, and I think it's kind of a gimmick, but if you have had a long day or you do want to use them, it's a nice feature. So again, we have this interactive vehicle image. We can choose all of our settings here, and this system, you know, it works well. You can alternate between the touchpad down here and you can also use the turn dial. You can use the touchpad here, or you can also use a turn and push for enter. So let's look back at some of these settings. We have really a lot of choices for the vehicle display. So we have sport, we have a classic mode, and a progressive, and all of these, you know, they work really well. The menus are flawless. Everything works well because of the physical controls here, even if it's a mouse pad style control. You'll also have the analog clock, which is kind of a nice luxury feature, and pretty consistent in BMW. All of these buttons, they're high tactile. They give you a good positive response when you click them, and these vents, they work well. I think that they could be a little bit larger, but they move enough air and will cool the cabin down. On the steering wheel, you have some flappy paddles. Probably not going to use them a lot for this car. Engine start stop, pretty typical. Keyless down here. These cup holders are pretty deep, and they can be hard to get to if you're just trying to aim and look for items in this storage. But otherwise, in the center console, not a lot of storage. This is a practical car. We're not looking for little nooks and cubbies to store your purse and multiple phone chargers. That may be here in the center, where it opens up here, and you have just kind of a traditional big display here. Let's take a look at some of the passenger features. Everything in this model for this year has been updated, and so it's all new. Passenger grab bar, your glove box, everything here is nice soft leather. You can see the stitching, and really, again, it's meant to be a luxury experience. If you watch a lot of my videos, you know that I love sunroofs. I love the panoramic full glass. This example would really be pretty disappointing. I mean, look how small this is. I can barely see any light. I would consider this a mini skylight, but it is technically a sunroof, and you're not going to get full glass. I'm sure it compromises rigidity and is not great for off-roading. Let's look at these seat controls. You know, this is really a classic Mercedes setup. We have heated options here. We have cooled options, lock and unlock. And you have the headrest movement. And this is really, you know, a pretty typical Mercedes feature where you have the seat controls on the door. I probably prefer them on the seat. I think that's a little bit more intuitive, but really it just depends on what you're used to. And so if you're coming from Mercedes, it's going to feel very intuitive and very natural. Here we have the headlight controls, fog light, park distance. So this does have adaptive cruise control. You have the blind spot assist, you have lane keeping assist, and these are a lot of the regular features that we've come to expect from a luxury car costing as much as this one does. You know, 125, 150,000 with options. You're gonna expect a minimum level of technology. This is kind of awkward. You know, I know it's pretty standard, but having the window controls and they're plastic all the way up here, it's a little bit awkward. You know, maybe I prefer like a center setup where the front passenger and the driver could control, or even something down here, down by the lower armrest would make more sense. But I understand the real estate is limited, and so you're just, you physically can't fit everything where you want, and this is where they ended up putting them. I really like these side vents. They're very flexible and they have a lot of range. Maybe don't move the most amount of airflow, but they look really good. This brushed finish, still plastic. So I really like this interface. It's the command, so it's not the updated Mercedes technology, but it's really responsive. You can control this through a few different center console tools, but it's really responsive, and although it's a little bit clunky and probably prefer a touchscreen or something quicker, the menus work and you're able to navigate navigation. The voice controls work pretty well, and the resolution on the maps is decent. The rear is not going to be that spacious. If you can kind of just get a visual estimation, yes, it's set up for 5, but really it's going to be more comfortable for just 2 adults. Let's look at how the back seat is versatile. You know, it's a very narrow opening, so when we look from the C pillar to the B pillar, it's very tight. You're not going to have a lot of comfort. This particular setup is great for dogs. You know, you've got this cover, and I would say if you're looking to only transport your furry 4-legged friends, it's a great setup. And something like this is enough room for pets, and they can look right out the window. I've adjusted the front seat for me, and I'm about 6 feet tall, and it's tight. You know, I think that you do have a high seating position, which goes well for comfort. There's plenty of headroom up here. You don't feel too close. But other than that, there's not a lot of legroom. It's really actually comparable to kind of a medium-sized sedan. Check the Polestar review for that. But otherwise, it's going to be comfortable for 2. You have that extra height, and so the best benefit of sitting in the back here is that your butt or your hips are elevated above your feet, and so your knees can kind of give you an open angle, but there's still not a ton of room between these two. You have your rear controls here, so you've got tiny little vents. I mean, these things are really just, what, 3 inches. I really don't think they're going to push that much air. So luckily you do have your cooled seats here, so you're able to push air through the seats if that cabin is not cooling enough. Again, nice touch. Everything is consistent luxury carried through the back. You do have one additional vent here. Well, that wraps up the interior and some of the exterior styling cues. We've talked a little bit about this engine, twin turbo V8, last of its kind. AMG is not even going to be spared this V8 cut from Mercedes. So let's take it for a drive. Now we're going to take this for a test drive. This is the G550 with 416 horsepower, 450 foot-pounds of torque. It really is, you know, the classic Mercedes V8. I think that they've done a good job with the AMG series, you know, with the E55, the E63, and they've built a reputation for building these powerful, great-sounding V8s, and this turbo example is no exception. It sounds great. It sounds muscular. And luckily, there's plenty of room. I think it's a safe car for your kids.
Hopefully they're in a car seat.
And the ride is rough, and I think that it is improved over the last year, but it really just depends on what your perspective is, because this car rides like a truck, and it is better than the previous generations, but it's still not going to match any of the rides like a comparable SUV. So that's going to be the X7, a GLS, and so maybe your viewpoint really needs to be like the new Bronco, the Defender, and this is a luxury truck that maybe matches the looks, the capability of those other trucks, but with a much higher standard for luxury. All right, let's give it the beans. pickup for a big SUV. 400 horsepower. Plenty of merging power. And hauling capacity. Once you've exited the car, there's no traditional locking on the car. I think a lot of people are either used to keyless locking or being able to touch some part of the door. Because this door handle, you can see, is a really simple, just ABS plastic. You have a thumb release. You're gonna have to manually lock it with the key fob. You're gonna have to manually lock it with the key fob. And then you'll see the mirrors go in to indicate the car is locked. So what's it like driving this car? It is really a fun experience. I mean, for somebody who has grown up with all these stereotypes, it is truly a car that makes you feel special. And I don't know if it's just the luxury perception, but I was driving around and people notice you, even though it's a very common car. It's just a cool car that definitely elevates, you know, your own self-worth, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think it's definitely true. And this car makes you feel cool. It makes you feel like, you know, you've made some artificial, some arbitrary status level, and if that's what you're looking for, the G-Wagon will do that. It checks all those boxes, and whether it's used or new, purchased or leased, when you drive around, you feel, you know, like you're the king of the world. And it's a really cool feeling. For people that are looking for this level of car, you know, Mercedes has really built its own niche. I think that some comparable cars would be like a Range Rover. They're starting a little bit cheaper, around $90,000. You can definitely option it to catch up. But if you're looking at this level of car, you really know if a G-Wagon or a G550 checks that box for you. And if it does, get a used one, get a new one, but pull the trigger and you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button.